Let's take a few minutes to take another look at input and output in our Node.js programs. In particular here, we'll take a look at how they would apply to our command line scripts that we're going to write in Node.js. In scripts we've written so far, we've seen console.log. I can say console.log, as diff like that, and it prints it out. There are, in fact, on the process object, a couple of three things called stdin, or stdout, or stdin. And if you've done any sort of console or command line programming in other languages, most notably C or I think Java or C#, you should be familiar with these. Standard output is just normal output. Error output is sort of a special output that can be sent to different locations. And then stdin is normal input to our program, which by default is sort of stdin line by line. So indeed, console.log is really just the same as saying process.stdout.write, hello, or here I'm going to do asdiff again. And the trick is actually, though, that console.write will also put a new line on the end of it for us. So that's basically that. And you'll see actually, though, here it does have a different return value or something. But it's a convenience thing. Similarly, console.error like that is basically the same as process.stdout.write. And again, it'll put a new line for things. There we go. For us onto the end of it and stuff. So that's the basics of working with output. I do have the distinction between standard out and standard error. And then when you work with bash scripting and stuff, you can absolutely route these to different things. I think even on Windows, you're able to separate, when you use the pipe operator, you're allowed to split out standard out and standard error and sort of redirect those to different log files if you so choose. So let's take a few minutes, however, now and look at standard in. Now, let's create a new script here called read.js. And so basically there's this thing called process.stdin, and it is a stream object like a lot of the other things we've seen in Node.js. So I should be able to say on readable, like most other stream objects, I'll get a callback, and I'm going to say var d equals process.stdin.read, which will have the data that are available to me. One of the interesting things that will happen to us sometimes in Node is that D won't actually have any data. So I'll say if there is some data there waiting for us, let's say, let's just quickly print it out right now to see what it looks like. So this should be a very simple program that takes whatever we input and then echoes it back to us. So let's try it out. Oh, what happened? Well, basically, by default, this process.stdin is what's called paused. It's not actually ready to do anything, and Node doesn't want to turn on that plumbing unless you specifically tell it to do so. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to say process.stdin.resume, and that tells it, okay, bring it out of this pause sleeping state, and now actually start paying attention and have my program just constantly listen for standard in. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm also going to say process.stdin.setEncoding. I just do this with everything I do in any programming language now if it's not the default. I just make sure that it's always listening for UTF. I personally do a lot of European and Chinese and Japanese typing, so I just want to make sure this is always working right. So now my program is just always going to run listening on standard input like this. And whatever I type, it should just echo back to me like that. Now, the problem is it's just always going to echo and stuff until I hit Control D or Control C, which are end of file, and that tells Node to shut things off. If I wanted to, I could actually say if D and D equals quit, like that, then I could say process.stdin.pause again, else if D, then go ahead and console.log D. So I think I got these parentheses right. So what we can do now is we can have a special quit, and we can say, okay, you know, actually I'm done reading. I don't want to do this anymore. And I can type blah, and it'll echo it. And, why is the queue not working? Well, the thing is, it's actually here. The buffered input is actually giving me the new line. So I actually need to say if it's queue and a new line character, then I want to quit and exit my program naturally. So let's take a second and see what it's like to do something a little bit more interesting with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to include var crypto here. And it would be, I'm going to say what we're going to do is we're going to take some input, and whatever they give to us, we're going to quickly hash with this crypto module, and then we'll print it out. So we'll create like a little simple MD5 hasher and stuff. So I'm going to say, let's say process stdout.write. We'll create a little command prompt like that. And then, so if you just give us a blank line, we'll exit. If you give us something that's not a blank line, you actually give us some valid data, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say var h equals crypto.create hash, and we'll use MD5 because we want low-tech insecure hashes here and stuff. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say var string equals h.update with the data we got, and then immediately turn around and digest it with hex output. And then I should be able to say console.log s like that. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out another one of these command line prompts. So now we've got a simple little loop. What it should do here is it'll immediately print this. It'll look for some input. If they give us nothing, it'll just exit by pausing it, and then Node has nothing to wait for, and we'll just slowly exit the program. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll create a hash. We'll hash the input that they gave us. We'll convert it to hexadecimal. We'll print it out, and then we'll print up another command prompt and keep waiting. So let's see if we did that right. So I'll say moo cow, and that's great, and I can type in whatever input, and I'll get cool little hashes, and then if I'm tired of this program, I can just hit enter and exit out of it. There's one last little topic I'd like to cover with input, and that is what's called unbuffered input. So all that we've seen so far has actually been buffered input, and that is you see I bring my program here. I type something, but nothing happens until I hit enter. And once I've hit an enter, that's when I get this readable event here on my stream object. Now, I don't actually have to do that. I can do what's called raw input. So let's go to raw.js, and we'll say process.standardin.on readable, and then function. And then here I can actually say var d equals process.standardin.read if d console.log you hit like that. Okay. And I can also here, let's do this, raw mode is plus, and then what I can do is I can say process.standardin is raw, and it'll tell me the current status of the raw mode. So what I can now do is I can say process.standardin.set encoding UTF-8, because it's just always a good idea. Process standardin. Now here I can say set raw mode true, and then I can say process.standardin.resume. Now, theoretically, we now should be able to just hit one character at a time and immediately get the readable event sent to us. So let's try that. Node raw. Okay, so there you go. Now, any key that I type, I'll just get the event for that. So for those situations in my programs where I do need to like I don't want buffered, I do want exact immediate character input, I can totally use this raw mode, and that, you know, is quite helpful for those scenarios where we need it. So that's our sort of introduction to input, and we'll round out this lesson with a couple of sections on executing programs.